everybody, welcome back to So Alexa, and thank you so much for tuning into this video. Simplicity S3035. I just want to make this two-piece right here. Views A and C. It's 100% cotton and it is sweatshirt fleece. I've already washed the fabric and I've let it air dry. And then I got the lining, which is a tricot lining, and it's like this cute like embroidery look. We want to start off by cutting out our pattern pieces. We're working with quite a few pieces for this project. The first being piece 1, the front. Piece 2, the pockets. Piece 3, the side front and back. Piece 4, the back. Piece 5, the yoke front. Piece 6, the upper front and sleeve. Piece 7, the undersleeve front. Piece 8, yoke back. Piece 9, upper back and sleeve. Piece 10, undersleeve back. Piece 11, the collar. Piece 12, the sleeve band. And piece 13, the lower band. We'll start off working on the front and back parts of the top. With right sides together, pin one pocket to the front at the side edges, making sure to match the large dots and having the raw edges even. For this project, I am using a 5/8 inch seam allowance for all seams. Stitch and turn the pocket right side out so the right sides of the fabric are facing outward, and then we're going to understitch the pocket. For understitching, we want to make sure that that seam is facing the pocket side, and then we'll stitch very close to that seam. I'm just putting some pins in place to hold that to make sure that that seam is facing the side of the pocket. Now understitch. We understitch pockets to keep the pocket lining or the facing from rolling out and becoming visible. Once we understitch the pockets, we want to then press those seams so they can lay flat. With right sides together, pin the remaining pocket to each side front and side back at the side. You want to make sure you match the notches and the large dots. Once the raw edges are even, sew. Press the seams toward the pocket. With right sides together, you want to pin the side front and side back to the front at the side front seams. Make sure to match the large dots and the notches and pin. Next, you want to stitch the side front seams, beginning at the small dot, leaving an opening between the large dots. Next, you want to stitch the upper pocket edges together, keeping the front free. And using a basting stitch, you want to sew the lower pocket edges together as well. Clip the front seam allowances above the pocket and press the seams open above the clips. Baste the lower pocket edges to the front. As you can see, we have our front pocket. It's coming together. Take a look inside that pocket. There's that understitch that we did previously, and everything's coming along nicely. Pin the back to the front at the side back seams, making sure to match the large dots and the notches. Sew from the large dot to the lower edge. With right sides together, pin the upper front and the sleeve to the lower edge of the yoke front, matching the large dots and the notches. Sew. With the right sides together, pin the undersleeve front to the lower edge of the upper front and sleeve, matching the small dots and the notches. Sew, ending the stitching at the small dot. With right sides together, pin the upper back and sleeve sections to the lower edges of the yoke back, matching the small dots and the notches. Then sew. With right sides together, pin the undersleeve back to the lower edge of the upper back and sleeve, matching the large dots and the notches. Sew, ending the stitching at the large dot. So now we are going to sew the upper front and sleeve sections to the upper back and sleeves at overarm and underarm edges. Now let's work on the collar. First, we want to press about 1/2 inch on the long unnotched edge of the collar. So I'm just taking my measuring tape and measuring about 1/2 inch and pinning that 1/2 inch in place. And then I'll take that to the iron and just iron that so it can stay in place. Once we are done ironing, we want to trim that seam allowance to about 1 centimeter. With the right sides together, you want to pin the collar to the neck edge, matching the centers and notches, placing the small dots at the shoulder seams. Sew this, making sure to keep the pressed edge free. And while you're sewing this, stretch the collar to fit. I had to stretch it a little bit. And when you're done sewing, trim the seam and press toward the collar. Now it's time to work on the zipper. You want to first open the zipper and on the outside of the collar, pin the zipper face down along the front opening edges, making sure that that zipper teeth is just over the 5/8 inch seam allowance and that the top stops about 1/8 inches below the fold line. I made a notch for my fold line just to help me a little bit better, help guide me. Fold down the upper edges of the zipper tape and baste in place. Using a basting stitch, sew the zipper. Before I baste the zipper, I'm just checking to see if everything is in alignment. I'm just checking to see if the seams are aligned and the upper front, if those seams are aligned. It looks like everything's aligned, so let's go ahead and baste that zipper down. With the right sides together, fold the collar along the fold line. Stitch the front edges using a zipper foot. Turn the collar self-facing to the inside, turning the zipper and collar out. Pin the pressed edge of the collar over the seam, placing the pins on the outside of the top. So on the right side. Now that we have that pressed edge pinned to the seam, we are going to stitch in the ditch. To my beginners out there that are like, what is she talking about? To stitch in the ditch is a sewing technique where you sew directly in the seam line, aka the ditch, between two pieces of fabric so that the stitches are nearly visible from the front. So my tip for stitching in the ditch is to place the needle in the ditch and then start sewing, and sew slowly. Take your time doing this. We want to make sure that we're catching that pressed edge that's on the wrong side, and we want to make sure that this looks nice when we're done. With the right sides together, pin the upper front, upper back, and sleeves to the front and back, matching the centers and notches. Placing the underarm seams at the large dots and matching the remaining dots. Sew the front between the small dots and sew the back between the large dots. Stitch the underarm edges and stitch again about 1/4 inch away in the seam allowance. Trim close to the stitching and press the seam allowances toward the front and back. Turn the underarm seam toward the sleeve. Now it's time to work on the sleeve band. Sew the ends of the sleeve band together. And with wrong sides together, fold the sleeve band in half lengthwise and press lightly. Pin the raw edges together. With the right sides facing each other, pin the sleeve band to the sleeve, matching seam to the underarm seam. Sew and stretch the sleeve band to fit. Whenever I'm sewing any type of cuff or collar, I try to tack it in 4 areas first to make sure it fits, so it's easier when I sew it around. I can go ahead and just pull slightly, like slightly stretch it, and that it comes out even and there's no gapping or any type of puckering. So that's my trick for sewing any type of cuff or sleeve. Sew again about 1/4 inch away in the seam allowance and trim any of that excess fabric. Press the seam up, pressing that seam band out. Now it's time to add the lower band to the top. Sew the lower band sections together at the ends with the right sides together and trim that excess fabric off the seam allowance. With the wrong sides together, fold the lower band in half lengthwise, matching the notches. Having the raw edges even and press lightly. Pin those raw edges together. On the outside, pin the lower band to the top, matching the centers, placing the seams at the small dots. Sew, stretching that lower band to fit. Stitch again about a 1/4 inch away in the seam allowance and trim close to the stitching. Press the seam up, pressing the lower band out. And here we have the finished product for Simplicity pattern S3035 in view A. Stay tuned for my next video where I will be showing you how to sew view C, the skirt. Thank you so much for watching.